want to give you a 5-minute education on Marxism. Can I do that this morning? You sound super excited about that. All right, whatever. Okay. Listen, as a pastor, I thought, I don't need to know about Marxism. So what Marxism does is it separates people into two different groups, oppressors and oppressed. Everybody say oppressors and the oppressed. When Karl Marx, a demon-possessed mooch, everybody say mooch, he never worked a day in his life, and he created this economic system called Marxism or communism, and he was a mooch. Don't you love that word? His wife prayed daily to die. That's how bad her life was. This is the founder of communism. You can read it in history. So what he did is he said, in communism, come on, you got to get this. You got to understand this. I know this is maybe not in the Bible here, but this is the demonic force that we're dealing against. He basically created an economic system dividing the rich from the poor. The rich were the oppressors. And actually, keep up the other one. And then the poor were the oppressed. And that's how he divided the economic system, so that the only way, it doesn't matter what the oppressors were doing, all rich people were bad and all poor people were good. And it justified the poor people to do whatever immoral thing was necessary for them to overthrow the oppressor. So morality never mattered. Marxists did not believe in God. He didn't follow the biblical foundations. He believed in lying, stealing, killing, raping, doing whatever is necessary to pull down the oppressor. That was their morality. Is this making sense so far? It's important. This is important because this is the mindset that many people have. Many people place Israel right now as the oppressor, and the Palestinian people as the oppressed, or even Hamas as the oppressed. And what a biblical mentality is, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. The idea is whether you fear the Lord. That you don't judge a person based on whether they're rich or poor. You judge a person whether or not they fear God and they live according to God's word. How many know there's some evil, poor people out there? And there's some great rich people out there. And to make this classification is what's happening. It's gone from just an economic system now into a cultural system where we call it cultural Marxism. Everybody say cultural Marxism. Come on, your pastor's trying to teach you today. Come on, can you help me out this morning? I'm trying my best here, all right? Would you bring up the next slide? So what happens is our culture now has deemed labeled all these groups as bad, as oppressors. White, heterosexual, male, Christian, rich. That means, like, I fit all these categories, by the way. And that labels me as an oppressor. And I've had people tell me I can have no opinion because I'm an oppressor. When we went to the pro-life rally, she was like, well, you don't have a womb. I've said, no, I have a mouth, which tells me truth doesn't matter whether I have a womb or not. If you kill a child in your womb, it's murder. I don't need to have a womb to speak that. So the whole idea in cultural Marxism right now is to create this class. Oh, well, you're white. And now they accuse a white person of being racist to oppress every other skin color. And so it doesn't matter whether we do good things or bad things. Doesn't matter what our heart is. Whatever we say is we're using racism. The heterosexual is using, heterosexism to oppress the victims of the queer community. And so no matter what we say or what we do, we're bad. Also, men are using sexism to oppress women. Christians, the rich using capitalism to suppress the poor. So what cultural Marxism does is it always takes the side of the underdog. Always takes the side of the oppressed. You got to get this, because this is what's happening in our media today. May 25th, 2020 was my birthday. It was, yeah. George Floyd. The George Floyd event happened on my birthday. George Floyd was overdosing. The report just came out. From the moment I saw what happened to George Floyd, you could see the fentanyl he was putting in his body. When he would talk, you saw the pills on his tongue. You saw him putting the drugs in him to hide the drugs from the police, and he overdosed. Now, did the policemen handle everything properly? Probably not. But was that racism that caused George Floyd to die? No. And what happened was our news media jumped on that story because it gave the appearance of racism. And we had more destruction in our nation in that summer than we had since the Civil War. And it was all based on a lie. Because what happens is the media will jump to the oppressed side all the time, every time. And guess what? If the shoe's on the other foot, if oppressor looks good, they don't share the story. Or if it's an oppressed, quote unquote, group that does something bad, it's never mentioned. Come on, this is propaganda, friend. Is cultural Marxism making sense to you? I started studying this about 4 years ago. I said, why am I studying this? Because I couldn't figure out what's the mindset behind what's going on in our culture, because I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. As I began to study what was happening, light bulbs began to go on, and I began to understand, oh, this is where our media is going, our government is going, and we have to understand that. So there is a fight that's going on. And how many know that oftentimes, because of the fight that's happening, we don't realize that this fight is going on in the land of Israel today because of envy and jealousy. I have one of the best pictures up here of jealousy and envy. To me, this is my favorite picture. It's my favorite. I want that to be a book cover one day. The Jewish people have been a successful group of people throughout history because they are blessed, and there are things that they do. They support each other. They bless their children. They tell their children, oh, you want to be an actor? You need to own the studio. You want to work in the medical field? Don't become a doctor, own the hospital. They encourage their children to do great things. And the Jewish people, normally in any society, cause the entire economy to prosper. And then what happens is this jealousy is stirred up in people because they're not successful and they're not blessed. And so what do? They expel them and they take their stuff, and then their whole economy collapses. Because the Jewish people are blessed. They're blessed people. There's things about the Jewish people that we can learn from. One of my favorite philosophers, a man named Thomas Sowell. Anybody read Thomas Sowell here? And I'm 92 years old. I still think he writes about 8 books every year. He said this. He said, a Jewish man asked me if there was anything the Jewish people could do to help reduce the persecution level upon their race. Thomas Sowell responded to him using only one word. He said, just fail. If you fail, people will leave you alone. Because that's what their desire is. Because you're successful, they attack you. That's what envy does. Did you know that's one of the 10 commandments, and it's the last one? And it's the one we need to be aware of. What's the true motive for what's happening in Israel today? It's jealousy. It's envy. If God promised the land to the people of Israel, we honor that.